The rating of Jaws was a real cliffhanger. Richard Heffner, the chairman of the rating board of the Motion Picture Association of America, that tells parents what to expect on movies. It was essential from the standpoint of MCA Universal, financiers and distributors, that Jaws get a PG rating, meaning parental guidance indicated, but it meant that children could come and see it.
Whatever the ratings board said to Scheinberg and Wasserman, they told Dick and David, who came to me as my producers, and said, Steven, in order to get not an R rating, but a PG rating, you need to cut some frames from the leg coming down. And I was happy to do it because they didn't ask me to cut the leg out. They just asked me not to let the leg hit, bounce, gush blood, settle, because I was really sort of studying it. So I cut about 1.5 to 2 feet off that shot. You just see the leg come into frame. Just when you see it severed and it just starts to hit the silt bed, we cut away.
And finally, a PG was awarded. Our argument was very simple with Heffner and his board. Nobody impersonates a shark, unlike films of violence. No one is going to go get up and eat somebody. Nobody's going to drag someone down in the water. What happens in nature is part of childhood's experience. Anyone who's read Grimm's fairy tales, Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood is one of the scariest stories ever written. And children are regularly terrified. After the film was distributed, I don't recall any letters from children about children having bad dreams. I had many about adults having bad dreams and never going by the water again. And so the rating, to the great relief of MCA Universal, was, in my estimation, rightly given. Parental guidance may be too intense for some children. It was on the ads. Of course, all that did was bring them in.
I saw the film in its final version when it played at the Rivoli Theater in Manhattan, which was a huge theater with a great big screen. And the members of my family and guests were invited. And watching the audience react to it was wonderfully exciting. I mean, they just laughed and they screamed, and they did everything that we hoped they would do.
I happened by coincidence to be sitting next to the Newsweek researcher who was sitting next to the Time researcher. And at the moment when Roy turns aft and the shark comes out of the water and he utters that great line that, again, I wish I'd written, called, I think you're going to need a bigger boat. The Newsweek researcher jumped out of her chair and landed on the upturned pen of the Time researcher, thus having a double screamer going. And I thought right then we have a fairly successful movie going on here.
There was applause at the end of the movie. The movie ends, we're swimming away, it says the end, and they went crackers. Everyone went berserk. However many people are in that theater, and I couldn't even tell you. Pretty big theater. They went nuts. And then they sat, and they watched all of the credits. Every last one of them. And nobody moved. And then they applauded again. And I've never seen that.
And I remember walking out on the sidewalk at the end of it, and I looked at Dreyfuss, and he looked at me, and he ran over, and he jumped up in my arms, and he said, we're sensational. We're great. We're terrific. And I said, yeah.
At the end of that evening, I walked out, and I ran into Dreyfuss in the street, and we went to a bar. And all Rick could say was, he did it, he did it, he did it. And I said, who did it? What are you talking about? He said, Spielberg did it, he did it.
It was a hell of a moment. I felt so proud that I was in that movie, and so proud for Spielberg. And I remember getting on the phone with notes. I was saying, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do that. And he was very pleased.
Well, Jaws went on to become the biggest picture of all times at that time. surpassing the $100 million mark, which had never been done before. And I remember the Universal Marketing Department would take an ad out with the shark and the titles of the various pictures that had beaten us and held the records, and the shark would devour each one each week, whether it be The Godfather, whether it be The Sound of Music, whether finally Gone with the Wind, finally, until we were up on top of the surface, #1, and we became the biggest picture of all time. This was before even the foreign release of any kind. We busted right through the $100 million mark, and it was a phenomenon. It really was a phenomenon.
When a movie has the success that Jaws had, it becomes more than an entertainment. It becomes part of the popular culture, and Jaws was no exception. We had really wonderful political cartoonists like Conrad using the image of the shark as a metaphor for political behavior in Washington. We had sketches on Saturday Night Live. Chevy Chase did a great, land shark. I remember that. And John Belushi, blessed be his memory, did a fabulous impression of Dreyfuss. You don't think of Belushi and Dreyfuss being anywhere similar, but when Belushi put on a blue knit watch cap and said this was no boating accident, you got a laugh out of it. The first shot of airplane by the Zucker brothers uses the shark theme, and it was a combination of elements that were all so instantly identifiable because everybody knew what they were. The shark's theme became a synonym for danger. Just all those elements just became part of popular culture.